Tim was an ordinary guy. He lived in a small apartment in the heart of the city, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of urban life. Every morning he would wake up to the sound of honking cars and the chatter of people on the streets below. Despite the chaos around him, Tim found comfort in his simple routines. He liked toast with marmalade. It was his favorite breakfast, a small pleasure that started his day on a sweet note. He would sit by the window, savoring each bite while watching the world go by. The golden toast, slathered with bright orange marmalade, was a little piece of happiness in his otherwise unpredictable life. He enjoyed long walks in the park. The park was his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the noise and stress of the city. He loved the feel of the gravel path under his feet, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the sight of children playing and dogs running freely. These walks were his moments of peace and reflection. But Tim had a problem. He was a trouble magnet. No matter how careful he was, trouble seemed to follow him everywhere. It was as if he had a special talent for attracting mishaps and awkward situations. His friends often joked that if there was a banana peel within a mile, Tim would be the one to slip on it. If something embarrassing could happen, it would happen to Tim. From spilling coffee on his shirt just before an important meeting, to accidentally sending a text meant for his best friend to his boss, Tim had experienced it all. His life was a series of cringe-worthy moments that left him red-faced and wishing for the ground to swallow him up.
One time I went to a fancy restaurant. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, planning my outfit and imagining the delicious food I would eat. The restaurant was elegant, with soft lighting and beautifully set tables. I felt a bit out of place but excited to treat myself to a special evening. I tripped over a chair, sending spaghetti flying. It was like a scene from a comedy movie. One moment I was walking confidently to my table, and the next, I was sprawled on the floor, covered in marinara sauce. The entire restaurant fell silent and all eyes were on me. I wanted to disappear. Another time I got stuck in a lift. It was supposed to be a quick ride to the top floor, but the lift jerked to a stop between floors. I pressed all the buttons frantically, but nothing happened. The air grew stuffy and I could feel panic rising in my chest. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for help to arrive. I was trapped for hours. Eventually I sat down on the floor, trying to stay calm. I thought about all the things I could be doing instead of being stuck in this metal box. When the maintenance team finally pried the doors open, I stumbled out, exhausted and relieved. It was another story to add to my collection of misadventures.
Tim wished things could be different. He often found himself daydreaming about a life where everything went smoothly, where he wasn't constantly the butt of jokes or the center of embarrassing incidents. He longed for a sense of normalcy, a break from the relentless string of unfortunate events. He longed for a friend, someone who would understand him and accept him despite his clumsiness. Tim often felt lonely, sitting by himself in coffee shops, watching groups of friends laughing and chatting. He yearned for companionship, someone to share his life with, someone who wouldn't mind the occasional mishap, someone who'd stick with him even when things got messy. He imagined having a friend who would laugh with him at his blunders, who would help him up when he fell, and who would be there through thick and thin. Tim believed that such a friend would make his life brighter and more bearable. Little did he know, a feathery friend was about to enter his life and turn it upside down. This unexpected companion would bring chaos and joy in equal measure, teaching Tim that sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them. And so Tim's journey with his new friend was about to begin, filled with laughter, surprises, and a lot of love. One Saturday, Tim visited a pet shop. He wanted a goldfish, simple, quiet. But then he saw it, a parrot, bright green and blue, with eyes that sparkled with mischief.
He's a real character, knows a thing or two about livening things up.
Tim was smitten. He imagined the parrot saying witty things, impressing his friends. He didn't think twice before buying the bird. He named him Percy. Tim had no idea what he was in for. The next morning, Tim woke up to a strange sound.
Good morning, sleepyhead. You look like a bear who slept in its honey pot.
Tim almost fell out of bed. Percy wasn't just any parrot. Percy was a prankster.
Did you just talk? Of course I talk. What did you think I was, a mime? Now about breakfast. I fancy some mango and a side of Gossip magazine. Chop chop.
Tim's life had just taken a very loud, very feathery turn. Going to the supermarket with Percy was an adventure, a very loud, very embarrassing adventure.
Look at the size of that melon. Bet it's seen more action than you, Timmy.
Tim's face turned as red as a fire engine. He wished he could disappear. He tried to shush Percy, but the parrot just squawked louder.
Can a bird comment on the exceptional size of a fruit in this establishment?
Tim's cheeks burned with embarrassment. He grabbed his groceries and ran, Percy's laughter echoing through the aisles. Tim finally worked up the courage to ask Lucy out on a date. He had been admiring her from afar for months, always finding excuses to talk to her at work. His friends had been encouraging him to make a move, but Tim was always too nervous. Today, however, was different. He rehearsed his lines in front of the mirror, took a deep breath, and approached her with a smile.
Lucy was kind and funny. She had a way of making everyone around her feel comfortable and at ease. Her laughter was infectious, and her smile could light up a room. Tim couldn't believe his luck when she said yes to his invitation. He felt like he was walking on air.
Tim really liked her. He had been daydreaming about this moment for so long, imagining all the wonderful things they could do together. He pictured romantic dinners, long walks in the park, and endless conversations about their hopes and dreams. He was determined to make this date perfect. He wanted everything to be perfect. He spent hours planning the evening, choosing the perfect restaurant, and even picking out a small gift for her. He wanted to show Lucy how much he cared and how special she was to him. He rehearsed his lines again, making sure he wouldn't stumble over his words. He should have known better. Despite all his careful planning, things started to go wrong almost immediately. The restaurant was crowded and noisy, and their table was right next to the kitchen. Tim could barely hear himself think, let alone have a meaningful conversation with Lucy.
Ah, a lady friend. Tim's pet parrot Percy had a knack for saying the most embarrassing things at the worst possible times. Tim had hoped Percy would stay quiet for the evening, but of course that was too much to ask. Does she know you sleep with a teddy bear named Mr. Snuggles? Percy squawked loudly, drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Tim's face turned bright red as he tried to shush the bird.
Lucy burst into laughter. She found the whole situation hilarious and couldn't stop giggling. Tim was mortified, but seeing Lucy laugh made him feel a little better. At least she wasn't upset or offended. Tim wanted to crawl under the table. He couldn't believe how badly the evening was going. He had hoped to impress Lucy, but instead he felt like a complete fool. He wished he could just disappear. The date went from bad to worse when Percy started singing off-key opera as Tim tried to confess his feelings for Lucy. The bird's screeching was so loud and off-key that it drowned out Tim's words. He could see Lucy trying to hold back her laughter, but it was no use.
Maybe we can do this again sometime, without the feathered commentary, Lucy said with a smile. Despite the chaos, she seemed to be having a good time. Tim couldn't believe his ears. She actually wanted to see him again.
Tim sighed. Percy had struck again. But as he looked at Lucy's smiling face, he realized that maybe, just maybe, things hadn't gone as badly as he thought. He had survived the disaster, date night, and there was hope for a second chance.
Why do you do these things?
Tim asked Percy later that night, feeling deflated.
Don't you like it when people laugh? Not when they're laughing at me.
But as he looked at Percy, he saw a flicker of something else in the parrot's eyes. Was it guilt? Tim realized something important. It was one of those moments where everything just clicks into place, and you see things from a new perspective. He had been taking life too seriously, letting every little mishap and mistake weigh him down. But now he understood that there was a different way to approach things. Percy wasn't trying to be mean, he was just Percy, a parrot with a personality, a bird who spoke his mind without a filter. Tim had always thought Percy's comments were a reflection of his own failures, but now he saw that Percy was just being himself, without any malice. And maybe, just maybe, Tim needed to learn to laugh at himself a little. Life was too short to be taken so seriously. Mistakes were a part of the journey, and learning to laugh at them could make the path much more enjoyable. Tim thought about all the times he had been embarrassed or frustrated by his own actions. What if, instead of feeling ashamed, he had just laughed it off?
Look, I know you mean well, Percy. Your comments, though sometimes harsh, are just your way of interacting with the world. But maybe we could tone down the public commentary, yeah? It's not always easy to hear those things in front of others. But maybe we could tone down the public commentary, yeah? It's not that I don't appreciate your honesty, but sometimes it's a bit much, especially when other people are around. It's hard enough dealing with my own insecurities without having them broadcasted.
Percy nibbled on the cracker thoughtfully. It was as if he was considering Tim's words, weighing them carefully. The parrot had always been a bit of a character, but maybe he could understand more than Tim gave him credit for.
I suppose I could try. Percy's voice was softer, more contemplative. It was a small concession, but it meant a lot to Tim. It showed that even a parrot could be considerate, could make an effort to change for the sake of someone else. But promise me one thing, Tim. Percy's tone was serious now, and Tim could tell that this was important to him. What's that? Tim asked, genuinely curious. He had never seen Percy this earnest before. Don't ever stop being you. Percy's words were simple, but they carried a lot of weight. It was a reminder that, despite all the mistakes and mishaps, being true to oneself was the most important thing. Even if you is a walking disaster magnet who attracts trouble like a moth to a flame, Percy added with a chuckle. It was a light-hearted jab, but it was also a way of saying that it was okay to be imperfect, to have flaws and still be loved.
Tim laughed. It felt good. It was a release, a way of letting go of all the tension and stress he had been carrying. In that moment, he realized that laughter truly was the best medicine. It had the power to heal, to bring people together, and to make life a little bit brighter. Tim looked at Percy, and for the first time he saw not just a parrot, but a friend who had taught him an invaluable lesson. Life was meant to be enjoyed, not endured. And sometimes the best way to enjoy it was to simply laugh at the absurdity of it all. Life with Percy was never dull. There were still embarrassing moments, of course, but now Tim started to see the funny side. He began to loosen up, to embrace the chaos. He realized that Percy, despite his mischievous nature, was always there for him. He was a friend, a confidant, and a feathered companion who never failed to brighten his day. Tim learned that sometimes the things that seem like the biggest problems can turn into the greatest gifts. He learned to laugh at himself, to embrace the unexpected, and most importantly, to cherish the unique bond he shared with his feathery friend. And so, Tim the Trouble Magnet and Percy the Prankster Parrot continued their adventures together, proving that even the most unlikely pairs can find friendship in the most unexpected places.